Carrie Smith.
And I'm Emma Skip, and welcome to It's a Death Sentence.
This is a podcast that takes a lighter look at the heavier things.
So, if you want some of this... So somebody could have been dead for a week and end up with you.
Or maybe longer, and somebody might have said, oh, there's a really bad smell.
A little bit of this.
I haven't got a tissue. I'll get one. You got one. And plenty of this.
Gosh, it's so original. Fucking hell. Then this is the show for you. Because
Life,
it's a death sentence. So, welcome back to It's a Death Sentence. I'm Emma.
And I'm Carrie.
And in this episode, I am going to fire the questions at Carrie. So, are you poised and ready, my friend?
I am. Okay. I'm very nervous now.
Carrie is far more interesting than most people.
Oh, I'm not.
No, you are.
I'm not, mate, honestly.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself, and can you, in that, tell us your job title and explain to our listeners what that means in layman's terms.
So, my name's Carrie, as you probably know by now, and I am 42, nearly 43. I'm a mother of 3 beautiful children, 2 adults and 1 child still. I currently work in a mortuary and I am an APT, which is an anatomical pathology technician. So I basically assist in post-mortems. So trying to find out causes of death. I work with the doctors, the pathologists, and do lots of post-mortems a day for the coroner.
So most of our listeners will be fascinated by your job, Carrie. And whilst we can't possibly cover all the facets here, can you tell the listeners what brought you to choose this career path? I think for a lot of people, they're going to want to know what brought you here.
I don't know, really. I think I almost just fell into it. But I used to work, before working in the mortuary, I worked in surgery, day surgery. And before that, I worked for the ambulance service. And I have basically always worked in care of some sort.
So just to clarify, these were all people that were alive, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's the fundamental change. So
Yeah.
you went from working and caring for the living to the opposite end of that spectrum.
Caring for the dead, yeah.
And so how did that come to be?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know what drew me to it. I was really I am fascinated by the human body. And working in for the ambulance service, it was fascinating treating people who are really poorly. But it's quite emotionally difficult when family members are there and you're sort of dealing with things in an emergency situation. From that, obviously with pressures of having a family and whatever else, I moved then to day surgery, where people were there because they were there for a reason. So it was very structured, and I like structure. It was very clinical, very professional. And then I've gone from people just being asleep for operations to actually not being able to communicate at all.
Yes.
It's almost like the last line of care.
And then when you went into day surgery, was that a variety or was it quite specific surgeries?
It was podiatric surgery, which is just feet, which is probably quite disgusting to most people.
Wow. That's
It's very specialised.
And a very varied career in health.
Yeah,
care.
Random career.
And so from looking after live people's feet,
yeah,
we then went on to work in a mortuary.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you up against many candidates going into that job?
There was, I mean, it's hearsay, so you don't ever get to know properly. The mortuary I work in, there was 2 trainee jobs, and it was the first time they'd ever had trainees. A lot of the people that work there have worked there for a long time. I'm talking like 20, 30 years, maybe more.
Wow.
And they had 2 trainee positions, and I think over 200 people applied for the 2 jobs.
Wow.
And it was me and another lady who was successful.
And did they ever tell you what made you such a great candidate for that job? Or was it your charm?
I think
and
it's my
wily
charm.
ways?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
No, maybe it's lack of it. They thought you'd be suited, you'd be fine. No, they didn't. I mean, they did offer feedback, but
You were like, no, you're all right. I'll just take the job, thanks.
Yeah, I honestly didn't think I would even get it because I had no. I mean, whereas I've had experience doing CPR, dealing with people who are critically unwell, have had my own experiences of people who are deceased. I've never worked in a mortuary environment, and it's quite specialised. It's not just working in a mortuary, it's dealing with a post-mortem and physically doing a post-mortem. So I had to retrain.
And and like you mentioned earlier, you like order. You're quite organised. I imagine that environment is absolutely perfect for that.
Yeah,
There
it's
must
very
be a lot
organised.
of organisation.
Yeah, it is very organised, which is
can't get things wrong.
Favourable.
Yeah. Okay, so taking aside your job and from a personal point of view, what's the first thing that springs to mind when you personally think about death?
When I think about death, I think about two things. I think about sadness and I think about joy. And I think about the sadness of losing someone and the joy of life and the joy of what they brought. I always think of everything in twos.
What an answer.
So
what an answer. I mean, 10 points straight away.
Thank you. I always think of the two things because I think without life you can't have death, and everything has a life cycle and everything lives and everything dies. So when there's sadness, there's also joy. So I always think of
very
everything.
Buddhist of you, both.
Very zen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I always think of things in like, although most people think death is horrible, I often think of like the beauty of it as well.
What a great answer. And can you recall and tell us about your first experience of death?
I think, like most people, I probably lost a pet or two. I remember being very young when my nan died, my mum's mum, and my mum being devastated. And my mum is still devastated about the loss of her mum now.
That was more impactful than the death for you itself. It was the effect it had on your mother.
Yeah, it was the emotional toll it took on her. And then I remember the first time I was really upset by a death was when... Do you remember Frankie Howard? He's a comedian. He was in like the Carrie On films.
Okay, right, yeah.
I've always been about the gaming.
Okay.
You know what I'm like.
Well, I know that.
I loved him as like I was young, but I watched him in the Carry On films. I thought he was so funny. He's a bit of like, oh, matron,
okay.
You know, a bit like that.
Not
That guy, but he's
very
like that.
He's
very. He did a sitcom called Up Pompeii, which was about like Romans and things like that. I loved him as a kid. I was like, I don't know why. He was probably really inappropriate. I probably shouldn't have even been watching him, but my mum let me watch him, which is mad considering she's so strict, or she was. I remember being devastated when he died, and my mum couldn't get her head around it. How devastated I was. I remember falling on the bed dramatically, crying.
So what age were you?
God, I don't know. I must have been about 8.
Okay, so very young.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, and I was absolutely devastated by Frankie Howard.
Do you think it was because it was him, or do you think it was the first time you understood that somebody could die that had some meaning in your life?
I thought he was such a beautiful person.
Okay.
He was so funny. And I think he was one of the first people who instilled a bit of my own sense of humour in me.
Yeah.
You know, when you first find something funny for yourself, he was one of the people that did that for me. And I thought that was a beautiful thing to be able to do for someone. So when I found out he died, I was like, what? How is this man dead? I've only just found him. Do you know what I mean? So it's weird, isn't it, that it was affected me so badly because he's an old gay geezer.
Yeah, and not somebody you know personally.
Yeah.
So aside from an old gay geezer, what about subsequent deaths? Any significant deaths?
My mum lost her brother, and he was quite young. Again, we were young, and then sort of through work, I sort of was around people passing away. There are patients that I had that died, but the biggest loss for me really was it was it's when I started this job. Actually, it was weird. I felt like the angel of death because I started this job. My uncle, who I have grown up with and I was really close to, he passed away through difficult circumstances, and then my husband's mum, who I'm really close to because my mum's not in England, she's in Ireland, who I saw every day. We found out she was poorly. She had pancreatic cancer, and she died 6 weeks later.
Oh, word.
So I was 6 or 8, I think it was 6 weeks. But from like diagnosis to finding out to her passing was really traumatic. And everyone was like, oh, you'll be fine because you deal with death all the time. But I really wasn't. I felt like I was devastated by it. Obviously, I felt that I shouldn't be as devastated as my husband and my son and, you know, his sister, and because I'm not biologically her daughter, and I was trying to be really strong for them, but I found it very difficult because I saw it every day. So it was really like massive change to my routines,
and so
massive change to everyone.
Just going back to your uncle and your mother-in-law, were they in quite close succession?
It was in about, I think, 8 months of each other, so not even a year.
And both, I'm going to assume, were quite young.
Well, a lot younger than they should have been. I think Aaron's mum, I think she was about 63 when she passed away, and my uncle was about the same. Yeah.
And I think you've answered this next question, but how did it impact your life? And I've got as well, my own question is, did it influence your career path? But what you're actually saying is, were you already doing this job when you lost your uncle and your mother-in-law?
Yes, I was, yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely made me change the way I think about things. And I think my job in general has made me change the way I think about things, because I very much now believe that nothing is permanent, and I sort of accept that. But it impacted my life, it's impacted my life and my career because I wanted to do this and start this.
Yeah.
So really that has been like a bit of a starter for change for me.
In fact, that leads nicely onto that question. What was the main inspiration for this podcast?
So really that was the beginning of it. The beginning of the idea was when that happened, and seeing my sister-in-law, who I love very much, dealing with grief, my husband dealing with grief, and obviously women and men deal very differently with grief. My little boy, who saw his nanny every day, she picked him up from school, him dealing with it, and he's very emotionally intelligent for his age. The knock-on effect it had on everything that we did, because we saw we holidayed together, we had Christmas and New Year together every year.
So pretty hugely impactful.
Like, when I say I saw this woman every day, I mean literally every day, because she lived opposite me. So.
And were there any inklings of her being unwell, or did it come about? The whole thing come about quite quickly.
It came about really quickly. She retired from work, and then she went on a holiday of a lifetime. She went on a cruise. She went to Miami, and I remember her phoning from Miami saying that she'd fallen over, and she was mortified that she'd fallen in the street and whatever else, and she was upset about it. But then she went on to have a great time. She'd lost a bit of weight, but she was I think she was trying to lose a bit of weight for a holiday and whatever else. And then her coming back from holiday, she'd been to America, she was saying she was tired. She just felt exhausted.
Right.
And we were
did you have alarm bells at all?
I
just
thought,
working in the health industry, did you see it or preempt it?
She came to talk to me about how she was feeling, and we both said, me and my husband, it's jet lag. You're trying to get back to normal.
Symptomatically, they're similar, aren't they?
I knew she was worried because she went to the doctors. So she went to the doctors and she recorded her consultation, and then she played it for me. Now, I don't think she would have recorded it if she hadn't have been worried about what they were going to say. She'd been for a blood test, and obviously it indicated that she had something in the blood was indicating that she had some sort of cancer of some sort. And then she had to go for scans and whatnot. And then she had to go to the hospital again. And Nadine, my sister-in-law, she went with her for the appointment. And I just kept thinking, best case scenario, it'll be this, and we can just get rid of it and it'll be fine.
Okay.
Because not all cancer ends in death.
Yeah, because I was going to say, from your point of view as well, you must have seen every type of cancer under the sun.
Yeah.
And those that are more treatable and those that aren't.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I personally don't know anything about pancreatic cancer, but...
Well, it is the silent killer, they say. Okay. They said that it's very late to detect, and by the time that you're symptomatic, normally it's too late.
Right, okay.
So
So knowing this, were you starting to panic at that point then?
Well, we didn't know that it was pancreatic cancer at that point.
You just knew that there was.
We knew that it was something, and then
be.
when Nadine went with her for the consultation and whatever for her to find out, then we found out, and I remember being like, "What the hell is this?" Like it just hit us like a truck.
Gosh.
And then we organised a little holiday because we were supposed to be going to Jamaica in the summer, and she said to the doctors, "Oh, can I still go to Jamaica?"
Oh,
and they were like, "Well,
right."
Yeah, they were like, "Yeah, if you feel well, then yeah." And we talked about it as a family, and we sort of came to the agreement that it wasn't the best thing to do. We should go somewhere in England. So we said, "Oh, okay, let's go somewhere really nice in England." So we went to Devon. We got a lovely bungalow, so it was on one level. But the decline was rapid.
Wow.
So from like a few weeks to us going on holiday, and then she got poorly on holiday after a few days of being there. And it was very traumatic. She ended up in hospital. She ended up in ICU.
Oh.
It was
while you were away.
While we were on holiday. So the kids were there. It was chaos. And then when we came back from holiday, my husband and his sister, they stayed, and the hospital were great. They put them up in a room. They could like rent a room from them, so they stayed down there.
Right.
And then it was a real like battle about what to do, because obviously she was terminal, and they said that we were like not expecting it to happen that quickly. We knew it was like she planned a party and everything at home, and she never got to do it. She moved out of ICU into a side room. Then she was non-verbal really at that point.
And so this was in Devon?
In Devon still. And then we organised a hospital bed, and I went home with... I took the kids home, and Nadine's husband took her kids home, and because there's no point in them being there. There's nothing they could do. So we took them home, and then we organised the district nurse to bring a bed into her house so we could get her home downstairs.
Right.
And an ambulance transported her from Devon to home. She had one night at home, and then she passed that night.
It's good that you got her home.
So we literally got her home.
Yeah.
That's where she wanted to be.
Yeah.
She wanted to be in her own yard.
Wonder whether did she, there's that, lots of people say they hang on to when they're
Yeah, possibly.
Where they want
I think she probably did.
Yeah.
And all of her friends that she wanted to see came to see her.
And were you with her when she passed?
And yeah, me and Nadine were with her when she passed away. So it was difficult. It was very difficult.
Really
time.
challenging, and not really that long ago for you either.
No, 2 years.
Yeah, it's no
she
time
passed
at
away.
all, is it? It's no time at all. It's still so impactful for so long after.
Yeah. And then my other uncle passed away. He had bowel cancer, and he passed away a year ago. So it was about a year after.
And was his illness long?
No, 8 weeks.
Another short one, right?
Yeah.
And you've got to ask yourself in your position, from a personal point of view and from a professional one, is it sometimes better if it is a death sentence, and in this case it was, to be a short one?
Yeah, I mean, like, my personal opinion, I would rather it be short and sweet.
Having seen what I've seen, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think it can be long and drawn out.
I think it's painful for everybody when it's long.
Leading on from that, what are your own feelings about dying? So, having spoken about two people who are very close to you, and that loss, which is obviously massively impactful, what are your own feelings about dying, and does age have an impact? So, you and I are in our 40s, and we've just discussed people who are in their 60s, which isn't that far away.
No, it's not that far away.
I lost my mum. My mum was just 60, and I think we start to question our own
mortality.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah, very much so. Tell us your feelings on, are you scared of dying?
I don't think I'm scared of dying. I hope that I leave enough of an imprint on my family
Just a
and my
huge
friends.
Carrie-shaped legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. That they will remember me for all the fun rather than, because I don't take myself too seriously, than all the sadness. And I would like to think that, a little bit of me would live on in them. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to get licked down by a bus and die tomorrow.
No.
But
careful on that road.
Yeah. But I'm not, I'll tell you what I'm frightened of. I'm frightened of being in pain.
I feel exactly the same.
I'm not frightened of dying.
Share that sentiment, exactly.
Yeah. I just don't want a long, drawn-out, painful death.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I just want to go, bam.
Because that's what we're looking at, are practicalities.
Yeah.
Because I think if you know your numbers up, would you know, if you knew you'd could you will it into place earlier rather than, let's say, for example, it's a cancer and they go, right, we'll give you some chemo and we'll give you 6 months more, which is for a lot of people the case, and those 6 months aren't, the quality of life is not great.
Yeah. I think I would be the sort of person to say, I'm going to take the 3 months that I'm going to have a great time.
And I'm off to Jamaica.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to have a whale of a time.
Yeah. Okay, and so that leads us on to, I think this is the golden question, personally. What do you think happens when we die? And it's very interesting from your point of view. So we're talking to Carrie, the human being. And we're talking to Carrie, Morticia Adams.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. I just came up with that. Brilliant. So can we look at it from those two sides of that
perspectives?
coin? Yeah.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people in my profession do not believe in God and believe in the afterlife. They don't. A lot of them, they don't believe in it.
Do you think that is what brought them into the job, or they ended up that way because they've seen such?
Maybe.
But that in itself would be an interesting study, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But I believe that there is something after this. I don't want to think I've done all this fucking hard work. Nothing. Do you know what I mean? There's got to be something.
So what is that something?
I don't know.
Carrie?
I think, like, for me, I think maybe it's like a never-ending dream.
Great perspective.
Like, I think, I always say, like, my son said to me, Mummy, is heaven real? And I said, heaven is something different for everybody. And your heaven would be different to my heaven. And,
great explanation.
So,
thought about writing a kid's book?
No, absolutely not. What about deadbeat? I want him to use his imagination and think how he would want it to be. I don't want anyone to dictate to him, like, this is what heaven is. So for me, I think of it like a never-ending dream where I am just feeling happy with the people that I love the most.
Contentment.
Yeah.
The thing that we're trying to achieve in life.
Absolutely.
Really aspiring to.
Yeah. God will arrive and say, Carrie, this is the meaning of life, girl.
You have arrived.
Yeah.
Welcome.
The good place.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe in, like, hell. I don't think, like, heaven and hell. I don't believe in it like that. But I do think that, for me, I would like to believe that from here you go somewhere and everything is
better.
A-okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've just touched on the religious side of things. You were brought up Catholic.
Yeah. My background is Irish
although
Catholic,
you have just
Roman
told
Catholic.
us you don't believe in hell, which is not necessarily in keeping with that.
Don't
thing.
tell me, Mum.
No, I won't. I mean, if you want to do the rest of the interview in that accent, I think the listeners would appreciate it. So, despite being brought up Catholic, and obviously the Catholics really tend to do the whole heaven and hell thing, you've just said you don't really hold that as a value, as a truth.
I mean, I went to church as a child. My mum's quite religious. Like, for example, I feel like I would be more practical when my brother's poorly at the moment. When she found out, my mum resorted to prayer. That was her go-to.
Okay. And yours?
And Mum was like, go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Get whatever treatment they can give you, practical. And my mum was like, oh, no, because the prayer's going to help.
Okay.
And I said, Mum, I think maybe it's a combination. Let's not just pin hopes on one thing. Okay. I mean, if the prayer helps, then go for it. But for me, I would be more practical.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying I'm practical, but then I also believe in a never-ending dream, so... Do you know what I mean?
But you've already told us that you're both.
Yeah. So, two sides.
Those values. Yeah. And that's probably the best way to be.
Yeah.
It makes allowances for changing your mind as well, doesn't it? We're just coming away from the religious side of things. And I just wanted to touch on the job again there. So you've said the majority of people you work with are not religious, working in your...
I've asked all of them, do you believe in God? Do you believe in heaven?
So
most of them say... No.
Are they the type of people who are just sort of black and white and cut and dry, practical, I'm dealing with the dead and it's got to be done this way and not going to enter into that type of conversation with you?
I don't think they don't believe in it. And I don't know whether it's from what they've seen or... or their own, like, you know, their own upbringings. I don't know what it is.
That'd be quite interesting, wouldn't it, to
But it's
expand on
difficult
with
to have
each
those
of them.
conversations when you're doing your job. So
Yeah, I bet
you know,
you
we've
can't.
only had like briefly had those conversations, and from what, you know, a lot of them said, like, oh no, it's a load of rubbish.
People who are drawn to that line of work, are they less likely to be religious? I think it's quite an interesting question, isn't it?
Maybe.
So, coming on from religion, what about the soul? Do you believe in the soul?
I do.
Okay.
I believe in, like, the soul is fundamentally what makes you you. So I believe that can live on in other people. I believe my spirit will go. My spirit will go. So
spirit and soul being different.
For me, I view them like, I physically, in my head, I view them differently.
So body, spirit and soul, 3 different entities.
Yeah, for me, that's how I see it.
So how is the spirit different to the soul?
I feel like the spirit is like the part of me that will go to heaven, or my never-ending dream, or wherever I go, which is like the part that will live on and observe all my babies growing up and being fantastic, and my soul is something that is part of my character and fundamentally makes me who I am.
Okay. So they're kind of versions of the same thing in a way? Or do you see them really
probably.
separately? Okay.
But I feel like, for me, I just imagine them splitting.
So that's
or
more like
funny.
a DNA line, isn't it? Of your spirit or your person.
It's like a physical
incarnation.
Like a physical version of me that carries on with them, but my spirit is
okay. So we've established that you believe in spirits. What about, have you ever had an experience with spirits or with a medium?
I have been to see a medium.
Okay, tell us about that.
I've been to see one where it was like a group setting. It was in like a pub, and she seemed like accurate for the people she spoke to.
Was it vague?
A little.
Yeah. Okay.
I was like thinking, I wonder if she'll like pick up on me, because I've got loads of, like, you know, dead people's spirits with me. They're all like,
around you.
we're going there tonight. I'll come. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I had like
just
visions
hanging onto
of
your
like,
shoulder, just a bit like Ghosts, like a Whoopi Goldberg type scenario.
Oh God, I'd love that.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, I wonder if she will pick me out. Like, I wonder if they are with me. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if they are or they're not.
Do you ever feel like something like that has happened? That
I think
be attached to you?
No,
it doesn't frighten you in any way.
I don't want to be frightened. So if they are there, please don't frighten me. You know,
well,
I don't mind them being there, as long as they're like happy and, you know, I think that I'm doing the best for you.
That was what I was going to ask you next. Is, you know, talking about spirits, talking about souls or mediums and the afterlife and your place of work. I mean, if anyone's going to hang around anywhere, it's going to be there.
I think
but
they
you
wouldn't.
Don't. But you okay?
No, I don't think they would want to. It's an old mortuary. I think people are more likely to be somewhere where they have a strong memory.
Yeah.
So when they come into us, they've already passed away.
I've never understood. From my point of view, I just think, why would I want to haunt anybody or hang around and be frightening to somebody I love?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want to.
Totally
I
agree.
totally get it. If you've got a grudge against somebody or maybe somebody killed you, maybe haunt them.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't know whether I could fully get on board with.
I don't necessarily want to haunt anybody. I wouldn't mind like just looking down on them and going, "Aw." But when it's appropriate, I don't want to see.
Working in a burger bar. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd be like, you can do better.
Yeah.
Come on. But I mean, you know, if they're happy, they're happy. I'm not bothered. But, you know, I'd quite like to be a voyeur, maybe, and just see what was going on, but not necessarily. Maybe, you know, if they needed it, a little, here you go, this is me. This is a little sign.
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
that's an interesting one, isn't it? I think I remember you asking me that question, and I think that there's a part of all of us that want the phenomena. Yeah. We want the magic, and it not necessarily be frightening, because our association with spirits and ghosts, or whatever we're going to call them, is usually a connotation with a film or popular culture that shows it, you know, being represented in a really sort of spooky, grim way.
Yeah.
But I think most of us would like, when you've lost somebody, to have like just a something that,
just like a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has that ever happened to you?
No,
nor me.
And I think if I was gonna
imagine
see
if it happened to us
it would have
both
been a while.
tonight.
That would just be
Magic.
weird, wouldn't it?
Oh.
I'll text you.
Well,
tomorrow
we've
if
put it
happens.
out into the world.
Put it
now,
out
so
to the
yeah,
universe.
okay. So let's go practical here. Buried or cremated. So from your line of work, you are sending off bodies, presumably to both a lot of the time. I'm going to assume more cremation than burial because it
Yeah.
is more popular, isn't it?
Yeah, now it is.
As a choice,
Yeah.
as one's preference.
Burning rather than buried, yeah.
So for you?
For me, I think probably cremation. I really, I like the look of those. Have you seen those where you can get buried in a pod?
Wow.
Like your corpse in a pod like that, and then a tree grows from
Yes,
you.
I've not seen it, but I've heard about it.
I've seen it, but I imagine that
What's
thousands.
what's the
I'm
pod
assuming
made
it's
from?
some sort of biodegradable.
Okay, and they just you're just sort of in a ball.
They just roll you up,
fetal
and pop
like.
you in.
Yeah,
Roll
like
you
go
up,
out
pop
the
you
way you
in.
came in, kind of.
Yeah, I
idea.
like the idea of that.
Yeah.
To grow into something beautiful, into a tree, go back to the earth. I like the idea of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure I'm dead.
Yeah, what, super dead?
Yeah. No, I don't want to, there's no bell in there. I can't go, I'm alive.
No, I mean, I just
Yeah.
think, coffin. I mean, obviously, they must have been, made for purpose, which was probably to stop bodies stinking.
And probably infections getting out.
Yeah. So let's imagine they've got a really practical purpose. I don't know the history of coffins in any way. We should look it up, but
yeah.
I imagine that. But if, none of us want to think about being in a really confined space,
No.
dead or alive. Anyone that's had an MRI will tell you that's not very nice.
No.
So, yeah, okay.
I think so either
cremated
and then maybe a tree grow from me.
Have you got this in your will? If not, why not?
I think I have got it in my will actually, and I have got a will,
Brilliant.
which
Yeah.
is something in the last probably since Aaron's mum passed. Yeah.
So to all our listeners, if you haven't got a will,
get a will.
And if it all ended tomorrow, is there anything you wished you'd have done?
I think that I would, obviously, if it ended tomorrow, I would love to see my kiddies grow up and happy and married, girls or boys, whatever, and maybe grandbabies, but no time soon because I'm still too young for that.
And you want to be old enough to not have to look after them.
Yeah.
To say,
don't go to granny, she's poorly.
Done my stint, love. You're on your own. Get some childcare.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd like to enjoy that. I want to enjoy more time and travel the world, maybe. I would really love to go to India and places like that.
So travel is on the bucket list for you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Experience. Do you know what I want to do is experience more culture. It's not even necessarily about going to 5-star hotels and going all inclusive. I'd love to go to another country and see
the real
parts of it. Yeah, for me that would be.
I think it becomes far more appealing the older you get as well. Or maybe when you're really young, if you're backpacking and you're not bothered about where you're staying.
Yeah.
But now
I feel like
I've gone
to wash my hair and
I feel like you go full circle, and actually what you want to experience from life as you get older is more of life rather than just the finer parts, I suppose.
I think
then could we also stay in a nice hotel?
Absolutely. I mean, we have some standards, but travel definitely. And as far as life goes, there's nothing I would change to the way things are. I think everything that happens makes you who you are. So
we briefly touched on this, but you've got a will. We know you've got a will. We've instructed everyone else to do it. But within your will, are there instructions for your loved ones?
No, there's no instructions. And
are you donating your organs or anything?
I am on the organ. I've got an organ donor card. Well, it's not a card anymore. You have to sign up, don't you?
Up,
So if someone can find something good in here, then have at it.
Just an old liver rattling around.
Absolutely. Drain the wine.
What's that smell?
Yeah.
It's pickled.
So yeah, if they can be any good to anyone, absolutely. If someone can stay alive and when I can't, then yeah. But there's no direct instructions other than cremation, and I would potentially like to be somewhere
a tree pod
outside because I like
tree.
Being outside.
Yeah.
Other than that, I would be happy for them to do whatever makes them happy.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this very, very interesting interview.
Lovely.
So thank you very much, Carrie.
Thank you.
That was Carrie Smith on This Is a Death Sentence.
For now.
And I'm Emma Skip, and
and we'll see you next time.
There's more to come.
Yeah.
So thank you, dear listeners. If you've enjoyed our show, then please do all the stuff that will help promote us.
Like and share our podcast and follow us on socials, and please subscribe too. If you've got any feedback, it's most welcome, so please contact us.
Likewise, if there's a subject you'd like us to cover, please do get in touch, and thank you for your support.
We are dying to talk to you.